Welcome to the Longevity Protocol with Dr. Cristina Bosch and Dr. John A. Robinson. We'll be your guides to uncovering the secrets to optimal health, better sex, and happiness. From debunking aging myths to exploring the science behind what it means to live the Longevity Protocol, we'll dive into a wide range of topics. So, get ready for an exhilarating journey in what it means to live well and feel your very best at any age. Hi.
Hi.
You ready for this next episode?
Yeah.
Yeah? Wait, you said it kind of funny.
I mean, it's an interesting one. So, I'll be curious to see what emotions are aroused within me as we share these statistics.
Well, I'm always looking to arouse your emotions, so
Yeah.
that's working perfectly for me. This is about not just the smoking debate, but mostly it's going to be about the nicotine debate.
Well, there's not really a smoking debate.
Yeah,
It's
let's
about
not,
nicotine.
Let's not steal the thunder here yet, because we'll get to that one quick.
Okay.
That's really
Hence
typically
me saying,
easy.
yeah.
Right, yeah.
All right, we'll
But
see.
nicotine is going to be far more interesting with this whole thing. So what are we going to talk about today? What are we going to cover in this episode?
Okay.
Is smoking bad? Don't answer that question. That's going to be relatively easy. Is nicotine addictive? That's going to maybe be a little bit more controversial. And
Okay.
that's what I'm looking forward to discussing. What are the benefits of nicotine? We don't usually think about nicotine as having a benefit. Does it? And what is that overall controversy of nicotine? Where does that sort of stem from? What have we seen with the controversy of nicotine even as of late? And what does the they out there always tell us the truth? Are we always getting told the truth by the powers that be
Okay.
when it comes to things about our health? First of all, again, you look beautiful.
Thanks.
I'm always enamored once I really am sitting down and very, very focused. Not that I don't focus on you, but even more focused here at the moment. So you're beautiful.
Thank you, babe.
Is cigarette smoking good?
No.
No, of course not. It's not. That part's easy. There's plenty of understanding, research behind this. We know that. Really, we've known it for a long time. We do understand, actually, cigars are not quite as bad, and some of that has to do with not inhaling. But I think in general, what we would be recommending for patients, for anybody regarding health, we would say any of that isn't probably the best thing in the world to do.
No,
But certainly
'cause it's
cigarette
gross.
smoking. Yeah. Yeah.
It is, and it's smelly, and it doesn't give the non-participant an option.
That's true. It's rather intrusive, isn't it?
It is.
So, okay. And that's really not the main thing. But what is the reason? Why do people smoke? The argument has always been, well, they're looking for the nicotine. And I say the argument always being about the addiction
Right.
to nicotine. It's this addictive thing. And that's why I'm lighting up, because I got to get that nicotine fix that everyone says.
Yeah.
And what we definitely understand, no matter what, with cigarettes, is that it's not just about the nicotine, but it's about all the additives. In fact, there's over 600 different additives that are put into cigarettes. This is not just simply, our great-grandfather's tobacco. This stuff has really evolved over the years to include a lot of additives that never would have been there in the natural tobacco plant.
Right. And that's the thing, is that, like, even as we're dissecting this conversation and we're really talking about nicotine, flat out, we can say that whether or not nicotine is helpful or harmful, okay, let's shelve that for a moment. No matter what, we know that all of the chemicals added to, I guess, the best sellers of cigarettes are the biggest problem.
Yes.
And you might argue, according to research, that they are the only problem.
I think that, we'll get to that.
Okay.
We'll get to that. I know
Okay.
what you're saying, because it could be that with smoking, there's a mix that's going on
Yeah.
with all those and the nicotine versus the nicotine isolated by itself.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
before we get to that, I mean, the standard stat here, and this is the same stat that's been around for years as I looked into this, 500,000 Americans die from cigarette smoking annually. But that's a decades old stat that has not changed. Pretty much every year, about 500,000 Americans die from cigarette smoking, even though people are smoking far less. And you know, it's interesting too. Everyone started vaping, you know, this vaping thing that everyone's doing.
Wow.
Yeah, right. And so that has its own issues as well, because of course it's just very chemical laden. It's not just simply a nicotine delivery device. It's got all these other chemicals that go along with it.
Right.
And, but even with that, people aren't even the whole Gen Z, they're not even vaping as much as they used to. Particularly, I was reading since roughly around 2020, it just started dropping again.
Huh.
So,
well, I mean, this is maybe one of those parts where you want to censor for your children, because what I'm saying is not very welcome to. It's not even cute. Like, at least you can say when you see a person rolling their own cigarette or something, I don't know, at least maybe there's like a moment of rugged charm to that.
I see.
What do you do with a vape? Gross.
It's like this. Yeah, it's a little sort of oral fixation.
Yeah, that's how you.
Tool.
That's basically. It looks like a pacifier. It looks like you're a grown person with a pacifier.
Yeah.
So that's extra.
Well,
okay.
However, we're talking about cigarettes, charming and manly Marlboro man or not. We're not recommending that really
regardless.
In any way, shape, or form.
Oh wait, question about that statistic. So you're saying that even though there are less people smoking year by year, the same amount of people are dying from cigarette smoke?
Correct.
So what does that mean? That means because there's so many people that used to be old smokers?
It could be that. I think some of this could be that the way what they're adding to the cigarettes has continually changed over the past decades as well. So it almost could be that what they're doing is even more deadly than it was from a percentage standpoint. It's more deadly than it ever was.
I see.
So stay away from cigarette smoking in all of its forms, vaping, etc. That's pretty straightforward. But what is it about the nicotine? So let's get a little bit more into the nicotine. First of all, is it addictive?
Nicotine by itself.
Is nicotine by itself in isolation as either a nicotine patch or other, there's actually pouches and things that you can do that are pretty
the answer
clean.
is no.
The answer is no.
I know.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
The answer is no. Well done.
Thank you.
So,
A+.
Yes, you go to the head of the class for sure. So yes, it's definitely not addictive the way they were thinking. Now, this is still controversial, by the way. I'm not making this blanket statement.
Okay.
Because you're going to still find that they out there is going to say it's addictive.
Right.
Even though there is a lot of research that there was in the past and even here currently that continues to show that in isolation, it isn't. Whether in human studies or even animal models, in isolation, it isn't. Which was probably even for researchers a little bit strange, because one of the articles that I found interestingly came out in 1993 showing that it wasn't addictive. And then what happened in 1994 was there was all in the early 90s, they were really coming after big tobacco. And before Congress, there were 7 CEOs that stood up before Congress and swore under oath, all individually said that nicotine was not addictive. Was not addictive.
Okay.
Now, nobody at that point, they had ostracized them so much. They were the total classic villain at that point that nobody believed what they were saying anyway, even though they all, could have, gotten in trouble for saying what they said. Right. But they all, swore to God that, and said that was not addictive.
Right.
And that was in 1994. Within months of that, the FDA came out and said, absolutely, without question, nicotine is addictive, right after they made that statement.
But the FDA also says that artificial colors are safe.
Correct.
Okay. Just
among many other things, obviously, that's a great point that, what is they out there saying? The FDA, all these other health agencies, the things that we have definitely been scrutinizing here, particularly since COVID. Are they actually giving us the right information?
Right.
And I'm thinking when it comes to nicotine, there is a lot of holes in their argument.
Your point is that there's a lot of gray to this discussion, whereas,
or maybe even a little bit more black and white than even gray. I think it's getting a little bit more clear when it comes to benefits like for your brain. So there's a lot of, and again, this is both human and a lot of animal models where it's very, very good for the brain. Neuronal, or this is a fancy word for nerves, the nerve development and protection. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, it's been used in that. So it does to some degree whenever I'm doing research, it really depends on where you're researching.
Of course.
You know.
Well, when I was a resident up at Yale, Dr. David Katz, he's just so great. He's definitely one of the, I would say, most respected voices in functional medicine. But he would always explain that you can find research to support any position that you want to take, right? So if you want to say that when the sun is out, it's actually very dark out, you can find papers to support that. It doesn't matter how seemingly wrong something is. If you have a position you want to support. So that's an important argument, because when we're talking about the they, like you're saying, one can find research to create policy that is perhaps influenced not so much by what is generally best, but by some other kind of a motive. I don't know if that was too abstract, but.
No, but you just said Yale, interestingly. So there was a 2015 study. So, fast forward, there was a 2015 study also saying this, and it was a bunch of those guys from Yale.
Saying that
it's not
addictive.
It's not the addictive thing,
right.
And it's probably more of what are called the pyrazines.
Okay.
And what's interesting about pyrazines, they are found naturally in many things, in wine and many different things. They're found naturally in tobacco, but there are sort of like Frankenstein versions of these pyrazines that have been created and synthesized. So like in many things that we've seen, you've got things that occur naturally in nature, then we take that, we can twist that in a certain way and make that bad. We've talked about estrogens, all kinds of things that we've talked about that are naturally occurring versus what it is that's sort of been changed or bastardized through science in many ways.
Yeah, you remember one of our episodes, we made reference to the notion of reductionistic, and then we had said, gosh, I wonder if we explained that well enough. I think this is, can you take a minute from your perspective?
Oh, I see.
Just because I have some comment to make about tobacco, and I think that notion of reductionistic, the idea of reducing something down to a chemical constituent versus looking at it.
Okay, so you're wanting to define
in a whole concept.
Okay, defining reductionism versus holism.
Right.
The idea of reductionism is a very Western, you could almost say Cartesian or Descartes. I'm getting a little bit philosophical here, but it comes from Descartes. It comes from as Aristotelian or Aristotle sort of approach of reducing things down into a singular, you categorize and isolate it out into its most, finite type of perspective. And you're not looking at it in a holistic way.
In
you're
relationship
reducing
to its parts.
Correct. It's not, it's just the tree, it's not the forest. That's reductionism. Right. And because of, again, Descartes, even going back further with Aristotle, how our Western thought, how that all infused into ultimately our Western medical perspectives in a conventional sense, it all comes and stems from that. It's very linear in its approach.
Yes.
And so therefore reductionistic. We're just looking at one thing about health instead of looking at the health as it applies to the entire person.
Right. And of course, I'm sorry, I'm going to just make a couple comments that are a little bit of a detour, but of course, when you're thinking about things like patents for medicines or things that you can sell and make money off of, right? If it's naturally occurring in nature without any modification, then you can't patent it because it doesn't belong to an individual. It belongs to
the whole
humanity, right? So the way business will make money on something is if they can demonstrate that they have taken it into a unique way out of its original source from nature, right?
Very, very well said. And the person that probably first did that from a market standpoint was Rockefeller. He was the first one. Oh, okay, no, I get it.
Right.
I get it.
Yeah, which is a good conversation on how is Rockefeller so involved in our modern medical system. But one of the examples I give patients a lot is the idea of vitamin C. Like you can say, how much ascorbic acid can I take versus how many oranges can I eat? So vitamin C can be to bowel tolerance, which means you can take X amount of vitamin C milligrams until it stimulates loose bowels versus how many oranges can I eat before I get diarrhea, right? Now, when you're looking at vitamin C, I am going to bring this back to nicotine. When you're looking at vitamin C by itself, you're just looking at the reductionistic benefits of vitamin C. You're not looking at the holistic benefit of an orange, which is going to have fiber and co-nutrients, co-vitamins, co-minerals, things that are going to perhaps allow that vitamin C to be better utilized, more bioavailable, etc. for your body. So if we take that very simple example of an orange versus vitamin C and we bring it back to nicotine, technically this is botanical medicine. I mean, if you think of the tobacco plant, which has been used in many indigenous cultures.
Well, let me interrupt real quick. Tomatoes contain nicotine. Potatoes contain nicotine.
So forget even the tobacco plant.
The highest food is eggplant. Contains nicotine.
I do like eggplant.
Oh, you're addicted to it?
I do like it though.
I interrupted there.
Anyways, I was just saying
you're bringing it back.
I'm bringing it back to this idea of how we're blaming nicotine per se. When we do that, it's because we're looking at it as a constituent versus acknowledging health benefits to nicotine when it's perhaps surrounded or sandwiched by complementary nutrients.
Okay. However, we're talking about isolating out nicotine here in this.
But even you were saying about the, what is it, pyrazines?
The pyrazines.
The pyrazines, how they're the addictive component. Now, is pyrazine part of nicotine? Or part of tobacco? It's
part of tobacco, among others. It's found in all kinds of foods as well. So pyrazine, again, is a naturally occurring chemical.
So we can't blame the nicotine for the pyrazine addictive property.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
But bringing this all back.
I hope you enjoyed my detour.
I did. I always do. So I want to bring this back to, well, why? Okay, so let's just say it isn't really that addictive. Let's say it actually has all of these other health benefits. By the way, IBS is another one that it helps with. So it has gut benefit. It definitely has a lot of brain benefit, which is part of when someone's smoking a cigarette, they get more sharp and alert. I mean, we've always known this to some degree. So if that is true, that an isolated nicotine is beneficial, why would they go out of their way to say it isn't? What's
the threat?
What's the threat?
Or what's the worry?
What's the worry? And so I'm going to get a little controversial here with this as well. Most countries, Canada, US, other European countries, have come out and said that by the year 2030, they're going to get rid of all nicotine, not tobacco per se, nicotine containing products. So there's snuff, there's things that people would, chewing tobacco, all of it gone by 2030. The children, got to protect the children, will not have access to any nicotine containing product by the year 2030. And a lot of things are happening. If you're understanding out there, the whole year 2030 is the 2030 project. There's a lot of things they're trying to make massive change, and the goal is 2030. So there's another one that why this? So nicotine containing things. Is nicotine really the evil out there that they have to make sure they're putting on the list that we have to make sure we change by the year 2030? What's that about? I don't know. But I will tell you that there is something called nicotine replacement therapy. And that was actually coined a while ago, but certainly in this 2023 study that I'm referencing here, as a treatment for COVID. So nicotine used as a treatment for COVID. And here's some other interesting things as I was researching all this. I think I might have mentioned this to you this morning. Initially, they noticed with COVID that people who were smoking died less. And that was something that they said early on. There was doctors that were sort of noticing this. There was articles out there about it. But I'll tell you, and everyone right now, if you go Google it right now,
you can't find it.
No, you can find it. You got to dig in Google. But what you will see on page 1 right at the top is that smoking increases your risk to die from COVID. I see. So as soon as the articles came out, and this is all a historical sort of timeline that was happening in real time, 2021, that time frame, smokers were actually dying less. They didn't exactly know why, at least initially. It's very, very counterintuitive. That doesn't make any sense because of what the smoke is doing.
Respiratory burdens, right?
But it was the nicotine they were finding that was actually protective. One particular doctor had smokers isolated in the particular ward they were in. They were intubated, as many people were when they were being treated for COVID. And he realized, well, okay, they can't get the cigarettes. I'm not going to give them cigarettes. He gave them nicotine patches. And every single one in his ward, and it was many, all walked out and didn't die. So they were definitely noticing something. There was something going on with that. And so it comes back to the nicotine. But then they went out of their way to suppress all of that. And I just would let people know, there's Google. Everyone knows that particular search engine. There's another one called Yandex, Yandex, Yandex. And I've been using that one.
Right, yeah, for
and if you take certain search terms and put it into Google, they will show you what they want you to see. If you take the same exact search terms, especially if it's something controversial, put in Trump, put in Biden, whatever. If you put those same search terms into Yandex, you're just going to get the information. It's just cleaner.
Yeah.
But you're going to get opinion now with Google. There's actually an AI. I don't know if you've seen that. That is relatively recent. They rolled out their own AI. So now if you ask a question, the AI answers it for you. And then what the AI is doing is sort of going sifting through anyway, and then it's kind of giving you an answer.
Right.
That many times isn't anywhere near the way it should be. It's kind of like just depending on Wikipedia for all of your information, and Wikipedia is incredibly biased.
Right.
So anyway.
With different biases. I mean, just to re-summarize what you already said very clearly, that pretty much with everything we talk about on this show, and with our patients, we're always saying you've got to be your own advocate. Like, just like we say, don't take it for granted if you read it on the internet. Well, don't take it for granted just because we say it.
Absolutely.
Research it, figure it out for yourself, feel accountable to your own decisions, but do so by ensuring that you're gathering as much information from all sides of an argument as possible, because otherwise you're not really making an informed decision.
That's the way it should be. There was another 2023 study, so we'll bring this back. They were using nicotine patches, and what that was actually doing. So why was it working with COVID? Because it was helping with the spike protein. So everybody remembers the spike protein.
Right.
It was actually displacing that spike protein. So even in people who are smokers and they're getting all the negatives from the smoking, the nicotine actually was beneficial specific to that. So it also helps with what's called long haul COVID. This is, this sort of long-term, nonstop symptoms and problems with COVID, even after the main infection is gone. And they were using nicotine. This is all 2023 studies, so this is now years into it, and started using nicotine and realizing that it was helping to really cleanse out. I think that's, by the way, being able to help with long haul is the idea of how do you cleanse out that spike protein. And there's different, ivermectin has been shown to be able to do that, some of those types of protocols, and now nicotine being able to displace the spike protein. So take that, how you need to regarding the controversy of that and why they may be pushing back about nicotine. I don't know.
So you're not really concluding that you know why. You're just saying it's an interesting question that we should be asking, and that we shouldn't get rid of nicotine as a potential option for therapeutic goals.
Yes, we should ask questions. What happened to where asking questions became controversial? That's the issue. And in real journalism, not at all we're saying we're journalists here, but the concept of true journalism is just, I don't know, I'm asking a question. Well, I don't know, I'm just asking a question.
I mean, I think asking questions has always been a problem. I just thought it was a problem of the past. I mean,
Right. No,
the world is flat. Yeah. No, it's not, it's round. Okay, you die. There's, the Inquisition. Like, I mean, I can think of times where asking questions were always thought of as bad. I just thought that in modern day time, at least in, the blessings of a country like ours, that those problems and those concerns and those fears no longer existed. So
no, I'd say it's the opposite at the moment. And we need to continue to ask questions.
Right.
Because that's what science is about anyway.
That's right.
So you have to continue to question.
Right.
And it's
And
never settled. Just keep asking.
And science, medicine, which is an art and a science, is meant to be challenged. It's meant to be challenged. Otherwise, we wouldn't have any of the amazing therapeutics that we have today. We'd, well, whatever. Anyways, go ahead.
That's largely it. Just a couple more benefits.
Okay, yeah.
Anti-tumor, anti-cancer.
Right.
It's an overall anti-inflammatory agent. Although interestingly, it does actually have some pro-inflammatory things. Inflammation in and of itself isn't evil. It is the uncontrolled nature of inflammation. But overall, nicotine is seen as an anti-inflammatory agent. Again, it's great for your brain, preserves brain nerve cells called neurons.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to it.
Yeah.
There's something to it.
And funny enough, I feel like this falls under natural therapies for me. I feel like nicotine is naturally occurring. Like I said, it's almost like botanical medicine. This is really herbal medicine.
Mm-hmm.
If you are asking questions, whether they're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. Let the answers unfold, and then find where perhaps it's a possible option.
Agreed. Let's summarize here.
Do it.
So it's pretty obvious. Number one, that we first said, smoking is bad.
Smoking is bad.
Duh.
This episode is not supposed to convince you otherwise.
Correct. The other nicotine has some benefits.
Yeah.
There is research behind this, supporting this.
Yes.
There's
good, strong research.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so, and more so as of late.
Mm-hmm.
It evolved from the early 90s, and then 94
Mm-hmm.
is when it hit, and then you started seeing it. By the time you got into the early 2000s, they started singing a different tune.
Are you suggesting that people be like nicotine patching themselves?
I'm suggesting that's an option. And I will tell you what, I'm going to do it, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Oh, okay. This is why I said I'll be curious to see what kind of emotions this gets brought up in me. I mean, I don't agree with that. I don't think you should go out and start nicotine patching yourself. I think what you should do is do a lot of research on your own, find practitioners that are going to be even more knowledgeable, perhaps on the biochemistry of a particular illness, symptom, or disease process, and then have open-minded discussions, and then from there determine what are the right doses. Like with anything else, what are the right doses for you to maximize the clinical benefit?
And since you said that, it is a low-dose nicotine patch is how this is being used from a longevity standpoint, from a beneficial standpoint, for your brain, and then of these other therapies as it relates to those diseases we were mentioning.
Okay.
So yeah, you got a funny.
All right.
You got a funny look in your face.
I mean, look, it's the longevity protocol. We are going to continuously challenge topics that others don't want to look at because there may be simple, cost-effective benefit to improving your quality of life, and that's what we want.
And I say to my patients all the time, I'm willing to do anything that I'm going to say to a patient. I've either done it or I'd be willing to do it.
To try, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So most of the things, I would say I'm a patient of all of this.
Yeah.
I'm out there
all right,
intrepidly experimenting with these things.
And I'm committed to supporting you.
I appreciate that. Making sure I'm walking the straight and narrow enough, right?
At least I keep you tethered.
And then finally, so again, smoking is bad. Nicotine has some benefits.
Yes.
It's somewhat controversial, but not so controversial. And ultimately, I think they out there, they're lying to you, and they're lying to all of us. And we need to be diligent about that. And we need to continue to ask questions. It behooves them to prevent us from asking questions. It behooves them to lie to us about certain things at certain times. We can't always trust what the powers that be are saying. And we need to continue to empower ourselves.
I mean, my message would be that we shouldn't be trusting blindly. Because even if the intention is good, it doesn't mean it's correct. And that's if the intention is good. So question.
So how do you discern?
You question, you do your due diligence, and have discussion. The minute a discussion becomes something that we're no longer supposed to be doing, to me, that's exactly where I want to put my nose. Figure it out.
Specifically your nose. I pictured that when you were.
Isn't that how you
sniff? Oh, you're sniffing it out.
Right?
I see. Got it. I didn't know if you were like poking your nose in. Or
Oh, that too.
That's
See?
it.
Good.
Yeah.
I picked the right body part.
Correct. So we summarized the episode and just want to remind everyone, make sure you're exploring our website. We are at longevity-protocol.com. Check that out. We also have our link tree there. We have our Substack that we're very excited about. So definitely please subscribe to our Substack, because all of these extra tidbits that we're
And the
talking
articles.
about, the articles, the references, all of that are there. We're going to put actual longevity protocols on the Substack so you can see more of the detail behind what it is that we talk about here on the podcast and other things that we do either personally or for our patients on, whatever the supplement might be or what we actually are recommending. Definitely follow us on Instagram. You can follow us on the Sex Doc. So, there's always fun things about sexual wellness and sexual relationships and how that all works. And we want to hear from you. Please comment. Let us know. What are you thinking? Is this controversial?
I'll be curious to
you?
hear your comments about this particular subject. I've been appreciating the comments, everyone. So thank you for sending those over. But I'm very curious to see what our listeners think about this particular topic.
We look forward to hearing from you.
Take care.